today's video. I speak to Paul Bullock. Paul is an Integrity, Governance and Reporting Manager. I first met him in 2014 when I started my first IT job, and I had the opportunity to work with him for many years. Throughout that time, I found him to be incredibly supportive in my journey. We speak about employers and what they need to do to support autistic people, his experience growing up around neurodiversity, and what his overall ethos is around neurodiversity. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 3 of the Autism Connection Series 7. And as you can see by the intro, guys, I've got someone that I used to work with many years ago. Let's see how much of a pain in the backside you thought I was. Today I've got Paul Bullock. Paul, thank you for coming on. You know, believe it or not, everyone, we've just worked out it's 11 years since we actually last verbally spoke. We've always communicated over message and kept in touch, but this is the first time one-to-one that we've had. So Paul, you know, thank you for coming on. Thank you for giving me your time. The first question I always ask anyone that comes on, and this link could be, you know someone or you worked with someone. Some of the links could just be, you know me, and that's it. But, what is your connection to autism?
It's a tenuous link for me, to be honest, because I think when I was growing up, I was always drawn to people who were a bit different, be it they were dressed differently, they spoke differently, they had an accent or whatever. I enjoyed traveling and cultural, different foods. And so for me, it's a bit, I don't mean to diminish autism, variety, and I was always curious about different things. And when growing up, one of the things that I was interested in is people who were blind, and how, because I lost my sight for 24 hours one time due to an infection. And it always intrigued me as to how people who were blind were able to do anything. Even at sort of like 15 years old, I was thinking about these sort of things. And when I was doing my degree, we had a sort of free rein to do a project. And one of the things I wanted to do was create a plotter that could make Braille. So basically, instead of drawing, you change the pen for a point. I had thicker paper, so it'd make indentations, and trying to use a normal piece of kit to create Braille. And it was very difficult, and it didn't work, and it was very clunky. But it was something that I really, so as I say, from mid-teens onwards, I've been intrigued by it. And just the challenges people faced. And I've kind of just had this not connection, but just in the back of my mind about people who are blind. So I think when I've ever met people who face challenges, be it a physical challenge, be it a temporary challenge, whatever it might be, I've always been drawn to them and just been fascinated by their circumstances and just been impressed by how much harder things are for these people. And generally they're more chilled and they're more approachable than other people, I find, or have found. And so I don't know. And I think as long as you are curious and you're asking genuine questions, often people talk freely about their experiences, which isn't always the case when you talk to other people about things that might be a bit sensitive or, they might close down. But so I think that's the thing for me. I think I've tried to leave things better than I find them through my life. I like to pick up litter. I like to tidy things and put things back as I find them and respect other people's property and that kind of thing. So I've always kind of had that sort of mentality anyway. And I think when it comes to people, I'm just fascinated by people and the diversity of people and cultures and things, you know. So it's, to me, it's all part of that. And I have a friend. So when you talk about a specific link, obviously our connection was through work.
Yeah.
And I think what I found interesting about your situation was how you had a number of challenges. It wasn't just your autism; you had various challenges that you were dealing with at that time. And it seemed that when you were at work, you were able to just get on with things. And I just found it incredibly, I don't know, humbling and impressive that you were just constantly looking to improve yourself and improve your situation, despite all that you were dealing with at the time, and how open you were about some of those things. I'm not saying I knew everything, but you were pretty open, and I think I was quite sensitive in the way I asked questions, and we interacted, etc. So I really treasured that. I was very grateful to you for that, you know, and it was really eye opening for me. I mean, I don't know what I was. I was probably early 40s at the time, and I was still learning. You know, it sounds silly because you're always learning, but you know, I was fascinated by what you were teaching me about your situation and what you were dealing with, and again, your openness and how genuine you were, your authenticity, and so on. So I just found myself drawn to you in that way. And yeah, you were just a great colleague and a great person.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's difficult because I think where we worked, I mean, in terms of support wise, I felt it's probably the one job where I felt quite supported. You know, I've gone other places and not had that, you know, and
Right.
it was another sad story, really, you know, not to get
Okay.
to sort of sob mode, but
No, no.
it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and we need more people like you. You know, honestly, I mean, what was your, just remind me, Paul, we worked at Britain together for, you know, I was about to say 11 years, no, not that long.
A couple of years.
But
Yeah.
it probably felt like it. But what was what was your full-time job again when you were there?
It was I can't remember the exact title. It was something like IT risk and continuity manager. So I managed the risk register, the risk management profile, and processes, and then also dealt with some of the business continuity and the resilience work as well. So I basically didn't have a team, but I kind of worked with the whole company in terms of just
Managing.
those areas, but around IT um, specifically.
The only reason I ask is because I remember going through my apprenticeship, and you know probably where I'm going with this, because one thing I struggled with the most was maths. I was useless at it. You know, to the point where West Berkshire Training Consortium was giving me tutoring sessions. My managers probably didn't really know what to do, and then ended up having you. And you know, and I mean this with all goodwill and absolute honesty with you. Out of all the people I had teaching me maths, I learned it the best with you. And it's because you understood me and
Mm,
it enabled me to, you know, because when you're in a classroom setting and you're being told, you know, pi equals 3.14, for instance, I'm quite a curious person to say, okay, but why? You know, why? And when
how
you're,
did you get to that? Yeah.
yeah, you actually get to that conclusion. And,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I think in the world of IT, we're quite conscious people because we
Mm,
want to know, okay, you know, it's like when we're doing a bit of code, you know, if something starts working, you're like, why is that working? And then if it doesn't work, or if you're expecting it, you're like, why doesn't it work? It,
100%.
when someone tells you, like,
Logic, it's logical sequence. It's a logical sequence that you're looking for all the time. And if you jump to the middle of the sequence, it's like, well, hang on, I want to know what came before. How did I get to this point? It's yeah, I agree.
you really took me on that journey. I honestly will sit here today and say I do not think that I would have passed my maths after, again, 7 times, but I would not have got there if I didn't have people like you know,
Mm,
around me that necessarily didn't understand autism or ADHD or all of the, you know, all the labels under the sun, but you understood me and you took the time to get to know Max. And I always, one of the main reasons I wanted you on is because I wanted to thank you for that, but also,
Well,
you sort of did answer it in the first question as well. But I was going to ask, what sort of made you, step outside, your day-to-day job and go, you know what, let's help this guy because, he's clearly struggling. He clearly does not know how to add up to whatever he needs to. Let's help him do that.
I think because I saw something of me in what you were going through. I think I'm quite an impatient person. So I do, if I can't get it in the first couple of times, I start to just disintegrate. There's just this sort of, I've given it my best shot. I'm not getting what I want. There's no way forward. And you find that you start to shut down, So I could see elements of that with you. And what I said, as you say, is I kind of answered earlier in that whenever we used to talk, I'd talk to you about something and you'd just be very open and you'd say, well, I just can't see a way through it, or I've done it 7 times, or whatever it was. You would you'd be completely honest. You wouldn't, make it up or dramatize or be a victim or anything. You'd be very factual, very open. And so my thinking was, if we could just get a few blocks, if we could just start to get a bit of momentum. It wasn't that I was looking to get you a degree or an A level, but it was just giving you a bit of confidence. I didn't have the time for that or the patience. but yeah, I mean, it was just, I could see that you just needed some building blocks and a bit of confidence and momentum. You just hit a bit of a wall. It seemed as though you felt like you were doing the same thing and getting the same result, and it was kind of like, well, you will, if you keep doing the same thing, the chances are you will keep getting the same result. So my gut feel was, well, let's look at doing it differently, and what might that look like? And I didn't have a plan, but as you say, I thought by talking to you, understanding how you see things, and again, that's what I like to do. I like to see what other people think and what other people's perception or experiences are. So yeah, again, with your honesty and authenticity, it was easy to do that, but it was then working together to try and build those. And to be honest, once we started to build a couple of blocks, then it kind of just took care of itself, really. All I really did was try to get you to try to put some blocks in place, really. And then you just did it from there. And that was so cool because I could see that you desperately wanted to do it, but you just couldn't see a way to do it.
Yeah.
All I did was crack the door open and you did the rest, but it felt great to be the one to crack the door open. You had to do the work. But yeah, that was very satisfying. I was really, really pleased. And I told you at the time, it was just incredible how you kept going and you did it again, and you gave it another shot, because
They got sick of me, to be honest.
I think they did. Him again.
Yeah. We just marked it off in the end, just give him it. God.
Oh dear. But yeah, that's how. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, I think this is the thing for me, right? So I worked somewhere after, I ended up working in a school. I was a senior IT technician there, and honestly, the manager I had for 4 years, he always used to say, Max won't get it straight away, but once he gets it, he gets
yeah,
it. And I
yeah,
think that's what you saw as well.
yeah,
As once I got it, it was like fine.
yeah.
But it's having that time to allow someone to
Mm.
get there. For you, what would you say to people, employers out there that might have been put in that situation who might turn around and go, "Well, that ain't my job, let him sink. Why am I getting involved in mathematics at the age of 40 plus as an IT risk manager?" What would you say to those people that would have that sort of attitude?
Well, I think it's narrow-minded and short-sighted, to be blunt. I think it depends on the relationship between the two people. I mean, there was no expectation of me to help you. So it was a choice that I made, so that helps because it was up to me to decide if I wanted to help or not. So that helps. I think sometimes when people are expected to help or there's pressure to help, that can be difficult. So I think I would suggest that people need to volunteer to go that extra step. If they don't want to do that, then that's fine, don't. But that's what I would encourage people to do, because from my experience in that situation we're talking about, what I liked was that we probably had a chat. We had 2 40-minute chats, maybe. And immediately after those sessions, you were making progress. You didn't really need me after that, but we had a couple of other sessions, shorter sessions, I think, or check-ins or whatever. But really, it was just maintaining your momentum. You did it yourself. And I think it's the classic of when you consider I've learned a lot more since our experiences, but I think when you look at neurodiversity as a whole, especially in technology and IT and some of these, quality control, some of these real detailed, logical sort of industries and roles, I think having neurodiversity is a benefit. I think having different perspectives is a good thing. And just because someone may struggle a little bit or someone may not quite get it first time or whatever, it doesn't matter why that is. It's incumbent on the team to help that person, because the next time it could be another person who needs that help. And it's not necessarily because of neurodiversity. It might be, but it could be because of something else. So I'm a big advocate of that collective. So if someone is struggling, we work to lift, and we deliver together. It's about achieving the goals together, and also I think that if you encourage people to grow and to expand their experience and their knowledge, that's beneficial to you as an individual as well. It's amazing how yeah I don't know. I don't. This sounds a little bit strange, probably, but when you got your maths, I felt really proud, not because of what I did, but because of what you did. Now, I had no right really to feel pride in your achievement, but I did. I felt that's how I felt. So I did 0.02% of the work, but I felt immense pride in you, mainly because of your resilience and persistence. I think anybody that you see, when you see a clip on TV and someone's struggling and then they make it, or someone's stuck and someone helps them out, you do feel emotion. There's an emotional reaction to that. It's natural, and I think that's what you should be doing it for. You shouldn't be doing it for recognition or a promotion or those sorts of things. You should be doing it for how it makes you feel and the benefit to you of that. So to me, it's a no-brainer. I think the collective is very powerful. I think it's good to have diversity within that group of all kinds, and I think it's been proven over and over again that when you look at autism and neurodiversity, by having a mixture of backgrounds and traits, or I'm not sure what the correct term would be, but having, it's very powerful, very powerful. But you have to create that safe space. So there are people who don't like to talk on camera. There are people who don't want to, don't want to speak even, or don't want their camera on, or whatever it might be. So as long as you acknowledge that, accept that, and allow that, if you like, I don't see that's too difficult. And then everybody can be their best selves on the day. We all have good and bad days. So it's trying to create that being the best you can be on that day for everybody, really. I don't know, I'm sounding a little bit propaganda-y now, but that's the ideology for me.
I think you're right. And, what I wondered was as well is obviously since, you've obviously carried on working and done other stuff. So, what have you found? Have you found any other sort of situations where you've had to manage neurodivergent people? And I suppose for in those situations, because I'm very process driven, right? And I imagine your job is very process driven, so
Mm.
um, I just wondered, if you've worked with other people who fall under that sort of umbrella and how that has been for you. Do you think that they're a bit more diligent in the work versus someone that might not? I just wanted to get your take, really.
If I'm honest, I don't think I've worked with anybody who's been as open about their situation as you were.
Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of people in my view, a high percentage of people in IT, especially if they've been lifetime IT people, they are somewhere in in that range or on that spectrum, if you like, because it just suits those sorts of people. Um, and I think what's been interesting is that through the different roles I've had opportunities to work with people all over the world as well, which I really have enjoyed. And sometimes when we get together for like a Christmas party, people will be over from Brazil or people will be over from wherever it might be, from the Middle East and things like that. And so it's been fantastic. But I've been very much within the IT world through my career. And I think, as I say, I couldn't say I worked with Fred and he was whatever, but I've worked with a lot of people who display characteristics, shall we say. And I think what happens is sometimes you need to just pause. And so you might say something and you can see that they're thinking, or you can see that there's just there's a slight delay or there's a slight processing time. And that's all it is. It's literally 1 or 2 seconds. So I have noticed that, when dealing with people. And also sometimes when you ask someone a question or whatever, some will ask for a lot of detail
Yeah.
and some will just give you what they think you want to get rid of you. And so there's that element of that where some people, as you say, they want to know the inner workings and everything that got to this point, and some just want you to go away. And I think those types of things. But again, it's just allowing people that opportunity to do what suits them. And if I think specifically, I mean, I've got a friend who has 2 children who are is it? I don't know. Do you say diagnosed? Sorry.
Most autistic or neurodiverse or
Yes, they've been identified at 8 and 10, and they are quite challenging at that age.
yeah.
But what's interesting is that it's the quiet that's important. So the more you push, the more you try to make something happen, the less response you get. So often it's those pauses and that quiet and allowing them. And it's interesting. I mean, I've sat with his son who's probably from the age of like 6 to 8, and we've had lunch together and things. They won't sit with him because he takes so long and he's so particular in the way he has his lunch. But I find it fascinating. And so I'll talk to him, and he won't necessarily talk back, but he will react to what I'm saying. He'll do things based on what I'm saying, or I'll challenge him to eat that and then that, and just like trying to give him tasks, etc. And it's really interesting how. And then he just softens with me, and he'll start asking me questions and talk about my food, and it's just creating that, I don't know, that space really. And I just think that we're in too much of a hurry, and there's too much demand, there's too much pressure. We want more for less. You've got to do it quicker. And I think sometimes just that pause, and it's such a short period of pause that's required. You can then create this machine that really it's a machine that you're creating. The person just crashes through things because it's just easy for them. Once they get it, it just, I mean, there's a lot of articles I've read about quality assurance and validation of coding and that kind of thing, where people with autism can look through code and just see it. Once you explain to them what they're looking for or how it should be, they can see it super, super fast. So you just got to take that little bit of time, and then it will just keep benefiting. But it's very short-sighted, I think, of companies not to invest that time. Some are doing it, but and AI is showing that now. Everyone's switching to AI, right? Because
Oh,
that's going to solve all our problems. I don't think, but yeah, it's an interesting mix we got going on at the moment.
I mean, for you, like growing up, I mean, obviously you said you were always sort of fascinated with people that were showed difference, diversity.
Yeah.
Um, what was the sort of understanding like, back because I can talk about my childhood, and we didn't have we didn't have the Equality Act or Autism Act, but we very well known that, you know, um, honestly, we look back even further, the understanding of neurodiversity was nothing.
Minimal. Yeah, yeah.
So I wondered what the understanding was for you growing up, but also a bit of a personal question, so feel free to answer, feel free to not. But,
Mhm.
have you ever thought, could I be neurodiverse?
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think what was interesting growing up. So when I was like under 9, I had a very tight group of friends who were a mixture of kind of mathematician and sporty. We were that kind of in between. We weren't super sporty and we weren't super nerdy. We were a bit of a hybrid. And there was about 6 of us, and we used to go around riding our bikes and climbing trees and I don't know, whatever we were doing. And I remember one boy in particular who was much quieter than the rest of us, but he was still just as active and just as involved, but not as boisterous, and not because I was very vocal. I was very animated as a child. I loved being on the move, loved talking, loved, etc. And he was just a little bit quieter. But what I found was that when I used to have a conversation with him, it was a much calmer, much more measured conversation, even at like 7, 8 years old. Whereas when you're not really listening, as a child, you're just kind of making noise but he was much more sort of mature and calm and considered. And I found myself drawn to him because I found, what he had to say was really interesting. And so I think there was something there. And what I liked was he'd still get involved in things, and we'd never make fun of him or treat him any differently. But that's just how he was. He'd still participate, as I say, still play football, we still climb trees, ride our bikes, whatever. Um, but yeah, having time one to one with him felt better quality somehow. It felt more considered, more measured, and I found that more rewarding, and I found myself drawn to that at a very young age. And I also found that there was something in me where at times I just wanted to listen. So whatever was going on, if it was a family event or whatever it might be, I would I would literally just find myself a spot and just watch and listen. And I think there's an introspection. I think there's a hyperactivity to me, and there's an introspection to me, and there's also a slight social awkwardness to me. So I've got these traits, if you like, but I'm not sure. I don't know what that means, but I think it does give me um, that curiosity. I do, and I do look for traits, if you like, in other people, and I find myself drawn to certain things. If people have got nothing to say but they talk a lot, I find I sort of switch off very quickly, and that kind of thing. I'm not materialistic. I'm not. Oh, I've got this. Oh, well, I've got that. It's like, oh, yeah, whatever. I've never kind of had that kind of thing. I don't know. I think I can't remember the guy's name. I want to say Richard, but I can't remember his name. But he was such a nice guy, and I kind of liked that quality of him, and I kind of saw that in me. But I think I would switch it a little bit. I'd kind of pretend I was outgoing, or I'd pretend a little bit, to fit in. There was an element of fitting in.
Yeah.
And I changed school. We moved away and changed schools at 9. And I think I kind of found myself more, I guess, boisterous, for want of a. I was getting told off in school. I was being moved to the front of the class. I wouldn't listen, like in break time and stuff, I'd be told to stop doing stuff and I wouldn't, and I'd be pushing limits all the time and seeing what I can get away with a little bit. So there was an element of, I talk to colleagues a lot about how I like to disrupt. There's something in me, so I want to know the rules, but then I like to sort of look to disrupt it, to
Yeah.
just see what happens. You build a system and then you kind of just throw something at it and see what happens. And that's what there's always been that thing in me that I want to know the rules, but then I just kind of want to see, well, what happens if I just step over the line with one foot? Do you know what I mean? So there's definitely something in me that has a bit of a, I don't know what that's called, but there's a bit of a malfunction, mischievous, and it's still there. It's still, I think I have an element of OCD, but I can be quite lazy and messy. I have elements of ADHD, but I like to be left alone. But I do like attention and validation.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit of a dual
Hybrid.
So yeah, it's strange. I don't know. I mean, a friend of mine with the two kids, he's talked about the reason he and I get on so well is because he's very ADHD and very OCD, and I give him space to be that, and I don't judge him.
Yeah.
And so I think I expect that from the people I want to spend time with. I expect that in return. I want to be allowed the space to be who I am as well. And if I don't get that, then that kind of is a bit of an issue for me. I don't like bullies. I don't like coercion. I don't like that kind of. I like honesty, transparency, that kind of stuff. And it's okay if you don't want to talk about it, but don't lie about it. Do you know what I mean? If you say you don't want to talk about it, that's fine, but don't. I'd rather. I mean, you can do what you want, but I'd rather you didn't lie about it. So yeah, there's definitely a childlike thing to me that I kind of think probably means I am somewhere on there.
I just find it fascinating, and boundaries is a thing, autistic people, not everyone, because once you meet one autistic person, you meet one autistic person, but a lot of the people I've met like to know what the boundaries are, and in order to find out what they are, they need to cross the
Testing.
boundary.
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
something goes because of it, then so be it.
yeah.
Better to try and ask for forgiveness later, than ask for permission. Um, I suppose my last question is obviously with how the world is currently going, with the AI, with leaders in other countries who will remain nameless.
Remain American. Yeah.
Remain
Okay.
American, yeah. And also you know, how our government seem to be going. It just feels like we made a lot of progress. And I just wanted to get your views on, do you think with how the world is going, we were going in such a positive way, and with other outside influences, it could undo that good work.
You mean from a sort of psychological safety and acceptance and tolerance kind of
Yeah,
perspective, if you like?
yeah,
Yeah, I think so. But what I would like to think is it's going to challenge those that care, and those who care will step up. So I think sometimes it's good to have someone to push or challenge, because you can get a bit comfortable or just assume it will take care of itself. Oh yeah, we've made good strides, so therefore I don't need to do anything else. Or yeah, we've got this legislation now, so yeah, it's all taken care or whatever. And I think I like to work for companies who have um, an inclusive culture, who have a collaborative culture, and I want to be part of that. So it's important for me that momentum is maintained in all walks. And I think it's fascinating how the interaction, the on the street interaction, has got less and less. Very few people will sort of talk to someone. Just the hello on the street is sort of gone almost now. And even online, there's so much hostility and aggression. But I think that sometimes you have to have these difficult people to challenge us and what have you. And I think it's interesting in terms of like, I mean, using Donald Trump as the example when he sort of pushed against ED&I and there was a big sort of backlash and a lot of companies started to downgrade, if you will, their kind of stance around ED&I and so on. That's just not acceptable. So I can see why, because it's a financial decision. You kind of get it. I'm
Yeah.
fully grown. I understand the way the world works, but at what cost? You might be trying to make money, but there's a bigger cost for me, and it's a societal cost. So, I think there's a lot of work we do at my company, where I work, and I think we're pushing hard around creating an environment for people to thrive, about creating societal models around accessibility versus disability. And so some of the language is becoming much more accessible, for want of a better. It's not just about, oh, there's someone in a wheelchair or there's someone that's blind.
Yeah.
It's about accessibility for all, not trying to solve that problem that one person is facing, but having a whole raft of tools and functions and what have you, so that everyone can kind of pick what works for them. If you need a certain screen or you need a certain mouse or you need a certain, we've got the options and you choose what works for you. We're not going to tell you this is the screen you need or this is the mouse you need. These are, here's the list. Which one do you want? So I think that has to be the norm and that will become the norm. But yeah, in terms of the future, it's going to be, it's the old black hat and white hat, but you'd like to think that society will win in the end, and we'll just create that bubble of the society that works for us, and it will be the like-minded people who come together, and I think that's going to be a much better place to be than with the whatever they are, the 0.1%. I mean, I don't want to be part of the 0.1%. I'd much rather be part of the 99.9. So I'd like to think that the 99.9 will out in the end, but who knows?
No, I think you're spot on. You're absolutely spot on. I just wanted to say thank you, Paul, for coming on. It's been
No problem at all.
brilliant. And yeah, just thank you for your time.
No worries at all.